So it's fall.
The most wonderful time of the year.
It is the most wonderful time of the year. You know why? Because it's a new fall television season starts.
That's why. That's exactly why.
So what are you watching right now? What have you been looking forward to all summer?
Well, I actually, kind of a retro thing, the return of Will and Grace. I was super excited about that.
That's been huge.
Yeah.
That's been huge.
And the first couple episodes, pretty funny.
They are funny.
It's just, but in a very nice retro way. It's exactly what I wanted.
They're exactly who they were.
They're exactly.
They really haven't
grown.
They
don't look like they've aged a day, and they haven't matured at all in 11 years.
They've matured not at all. Maybe they've even dematured. I don't know.
But did we want them to?
No, not at all. You want them to be immature.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't feel superior.
What are you watching?
Here's what I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Now, you have admitted to me that you didn't see last season. This is a show that I think everyone should be watching.
Okay.
The Good Place. Ted Danson, Kristen Bell.
Okay.
It is.
I like both of them.
Brilliant. I don't use that word loosely. I really, truly don't.
Well, you made it into 2 words.
I did.
Yeah.
I may have made it into several more because I am from the South. I can do that. Anywho, point being, it is the most amazing writing and storytelling, but it's okay. The acting is great. Everything, the production values, everything's wonderful.
Okay.
And they'll have these little guest stars that come on that are brilliant. The writing, every episode, in the first season, you'd be going chug toward this way. The plot's going this way, and then suddenly it would take us hard left.
Okay, in a good way.
In a good way, in a funny way, to where at the end you're going, "What just happened?" And you were doing that on almost every single episode.
Okay,
and then they start season 2, and they're doing it again. It's hysterically funny.
Okay.
Kristen Bell is delightful.
She's lovely.
And Ted Danson is wonderful in this.
Yeah.
But the writing and the storyline is, I recommend everybody see it. It is one of the most genius and it's unique series I've ever seen. And I can't talk about it enough. So
The Good Place.
The Good Place.
Will and Grace. We're in.
Yep.
When the chaos of popular culture makes your brain hurt, you really need relief in the form of a transfusion of analysis and humor. It's time for a Poperation. Join hosts Eric and Stacey as they dissect popular culture one bloody organ at a time. It's just what the doctor ordered.
And it is Poperation. I'm Stacey.
I'm Eric.
And how are you doing?
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's good to see you, though.
Okay, so here's the thing. We're talking today about remakes.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be trendy.
Because everything old is new again.
Everything old is new again. We actually at one point talked about like Will and Grace coming back on television.
Yep.
So that's not a remake though. Really, it's kind of more of a sequel.
Continuation.
Yeah, continuation. But remakes in Hollywood are the thing, and sometimes people get sick of them because they feel like,
it's lazy.
It's lazy, and writers can't think of any more plots.
Yeah.
And so you end up with some movies that are awful.
Yeah.
Just awful.
Yeah.
Which we could name some.
I think the worst offender of the lazy remake was probably when Gus Van Sant tried to do Psycho over again. And it was a shot-for-shot remake. Yeah. And it was like, so basically you're not even directing, you're just taking Alfred Hitchcock's notes and just creating something.
And you know what the problem was? That what he ended up with was more of a shell.
Yeah.
Because the
performances
heart
had no soul.
And the warmth was not there.
Yeah.
And also the newness.
Yeah.
That Alfred Hitchcock, it was new. It was crazy. Did you know that they used to have nurses at the theaters of where Psycho was being shown? The original Psycho, not Gus Van Sant. They actually had people there trying to wake people up. But in the original, they had nurses on standby. Now, some of it was a publicity stunt.
Okay, I'm
but the idea was that people were fainting. They were just losing their shit.
Yeah.
But that's a good movie. And then when you remake a good movie, you kind of ought to have a good movie. You know who did that good?
Who?
True Grit.
That was okay. So that is a kind of remake, right?
Right. I know. We get into the nitpicky thing here.
So some, and we might have to have a whole episode at some point on adaptations and whether the book is ever better than the movie, or if a movie's ever better than the book. But True Grit, I didn't know this until we were doing research for this episode, but True Grit was actually a book.
I didn't realize that.
And so the John Wayne version was based on the book, and the Coen brothers say they did not remake the John Wayne movie. Okay. They went back to the book and basically did another adaptation. But I agree, the new True Grit was great, and there was a reason to have another one, because they could do things in the movies now that John Wayne could not do in terms of making it, gritty.
And here's a question. Is there a good reason to do a remake? And I do think there are.
Sure.
I do think there are.
Yes.
And one reason is because you have the technology.
Yep.
But another reason for me that I think is also cool is that you can present this story to a whole new audience that might not ever go and look at the older version.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would love for all people to be able to appreciate movies that were made before they were born more than they do.
Yes.
And I'm just an old movie person. Correct. I just like old movies. So I wish sometimes that people would say, hey, you should really... So a remake that was not so great for me was The Manchurian Candidate.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that movie in a future episode. So teaser, that's coming back. But that movie is one that people should go back and watch the original. The remake was just okay.
And they changed the story a little bit.
A little bit.
But they weren't helpful changes.
Yeah. No.
And I love Denzel Washington. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Love him.
Well, Meryl Streep.
And Meryl Streep.
Liev Schreiber, great actor.
The talent was not the problem.
No.
Of it. The on screen talent was not the problem. Frankly, the writing was a problem.
Yeah, a little bit.
But certainly the idea for me, there was something iconic about the way the original was filmed.
Yes.
It's not a perfect movie.
No.
But it is very good, and my feeling is you don't need to redo it.
And it holds up. I mean, it totally really is entertaining.
And honestly, in 2017, it holds up crazy, because one reason they remade it was to make it more modern and so that people could relate. But they just didn't do it in the right way.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the original, it actually, as you said, it holds up.
Yeah.
And it's still very, very...
And we're going to talk about some remakes today in depth that were made for good reasons, and I think, they went where they needed to go. I think one that had really good intentions in that regard, it just fell flat for so many reasons, was The Women. Now, the original The Women, which, by the way, if you're a fan of 1939's The Women, we have a whole episode on 1939, so you should go back and listen to that because it was a good show. Not a very enlightened time when it came to women's issues. And so the film itself is criticized, I think rightly so, by a lot of people for being kind of misogynist. But what's so great about the 1939 version is that the women are terrible to each other. They're bitchy. But part of it is because when you're living in a deeply misogynist society, that tends to happen. People with less power tend to turn on each other. And so it's an interesting commentary on what misogyny looks like when you're just looking at
You feel like there's only room for one.
Exactly.
And so you're like, you have to be the one.
So you're not going to share your power.
Correct.
That idea never comes into your head. So a friendlier feminist version.
She was, again,
but she took the claws out. She just declawed the whole thing.
Well, but here's the thing. That story was never going to, in my opinion, that was never going to fly in the late 20th and certainly not the 21st century.
Yeah.
So I find that to be just a mistake on her part. That should never have been attempted. And her idea was to bring this story, as you said, to make it friendly, but also to bring it to people who had never seen the old one.
Yeah.
Well, my thing on this is go see the old one because it's more understandable in the time it was made.
Yes. I saw it on stage a while back at Arena Stage here in Washington, D.C., and it was a period piece. It totally worked.
It has to be, in my opinion.
But it has to be a period piece.
I think it has to be. Now, another movie real quick that I'll touch on that they did two versions of within about 3 or 4 years was Death at a Funeral.
Okay.
There's a British version, and it's basically all white people, Chris Rock did an African-American version, which is American, and it had Kevin Hart and...
Didn't they both have Peter Dinklage
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Peter Dinklage was in both of them, which is what is really, really funny.
Yeah.
But for me, on this one, I felt like that was a good reason to do. That was a good reason.
It worked.
It worked just as well as the first one did.
Okay.
And my thing is to do that so that other people can act that part. There's no reason that it had to be a white film.
Well, that's what's so great about theater, right? Is that
That's true
you can see a million people play the same role, and it's totally expected because every night is a brand new experience.
Well, here's who was in it. I'm sorry. It was Ron Glass, Danny Glover, Kevin Hart, Martin Lawrence, Tracy Morgan, Chris Rock, Zoe Saldana. I mean, that's heavy hitters.
It's a great cast.
It's a great cast.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's one of those where to me, that's a good reason, is to give other people the opportunity. And I think that's what happened with the women, too, the Queen Latifah version. But it was not the cast. It's that story. And I think that's what producers need to be careful. What is it that you're remaking and why are you doing that?
Yeah.
We off the air talked about Arthur.
Ugh.
Why?
Well, here's the problem with Arthur. When the original Arthur, Dudley Moore, Liza Minnelli, John Gielgud, was made, drunk playboys could be funny. I think when Russell Brand got around to making that movie, we knew more about addiction at that point. And it wasn't funny anymore.
No.
Watching someone struggle with alcoholism is not a matter of comedy anymore for us. We know too much.
Well, you look at older movies where you'd have a drink on the road. They'd say, "Well, I'm going to have one for the road."
Yep.
They'd have that last beer or that last cocktail before they went out and they drove somewhere.
Yeah.
And we're like, "Yeah, that's fine. That's hysterical. They might run into a tree."
Yep. Well, it's funny. Funny story about that, real quick. Frank Sinatra was doing a duets album at one point, and he invited all of these people to sing duets with him. He wanted Carly Simon to do a duet with him, and she said, great. And he sent her sheet music for One for the Road, and she said, yeah, I'm the celebrity spokesperson for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Probably shouldn't sing this song. So he ended up doing it with Kenny G.
What?
Who just played the saxophone while he sang the song. That was the duet, Frank Sinatra and Kenny G. Anyway.
That smacks a little of desperation. And don't get me wrong, Old Blue Eyes, when he was in his heyday, nobody else's voice was cream.
No,
like that.
well,
except Nat King Cole. He also his butter.
Yep.
But I digress.
Critters, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Carly, you crazy gal.
She did a duet with him, just not that song. She said, I can't do that.
Speaking of Frank Sinatra, he is in one of the ones that we want to talk about.
He is.
It's interesting because we actually liked the newer version better.
A lot better.
We like the remake much better than the first one.
And we're going to talk about it in just a moment.
We'll return to Popperation in just a moment. Please stand by.
So we're back talking about remakes, movies. We're talking about movies.
When they already made the movie, and you just want to make it again.
And then they make it again. Sometimes they wait decades, sometimes they do not, which is weird. But again, as I said, it depends on why you're remaking it. Now, this one that we're talking about, we talked about the Frank Sinatra, Ocean's 11.
Yes.
The original was the Rat Pack.
Uh-huh.
The original Rat Pack, which was Peter Lawford, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and then you had some also-rans.
Yep.
Like Joey Bishop would sometimes be there. Who else?
Well, in a weird way, Shirley MacLaine was probably part of the Rat Pack. Yep.
Too. Yeah,
and they were both in this movie.
Yeah, and I will tell you that somebody who was a friend of theirs also was Marilyn Monroe.
Uh-huh.
She also was a good friend of Frank Sinatra and Peter Lawford especially.
Yep.
So that's who that was the gang. That was who was hanging out, though. The guys, though, was the Rat Pack.
Yep.
And then it was just their malls, basically.
Yeah.
Because it was a very misogynistic and chauvinistic and racist group of guys. But boy, they were, they could be funny.
They could be in a really racist, sexist kind of way. But go ahead.
So basically, they're performing in Vegas as they were wont to do. And I guess they just decided, let's make a movie.
Between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m.
So they were doing a show.
They would do their Vegas lounge acts.
It'd be done at what, midnight or 1?
About midnight. And then they would just make a movie. And then it would, if they had daytime scenes, they'd film them during the day. But mostly they were nighttime scenes that they were filming while they were, had been drinking cocktails while the camera's being set up. And just, they just threw together it was Mickey and Judy making a movie, except they were drunk gigolos in Las Vegas. That was the difference. And
they really were. I mean, you can totally tell.
Yes.
That they haven't necessarily had as much sleep as one would hope.
Maybe not, yeah.
But here's the story, if you want to tell the story of what Ocean's 11 is about.
So the story of Ocean's 11, both the original and the remake, is basically this guy, Danny Ocean, Frank Sinatra in the original, has this plan to rob not one, but 5 different casinos along the Las Vegas Strip. And he just gathers this group of people to pull off this big heist. And that's the movie. Now, the heist happens about 2/3 of the way through the movie, and then the rest of the original movie was about them trying to get the money out of town.
Right.
And interesting.
And it's basically kind of like A-Team on Crack, an A-Team episode, if you remember that TV series.
Sure.
On Crack.
Yeah.
Because it was about a plan that was always so convoluted and down to the timing. Everybody's got to synchronize their watches and whatnot.
Yep.
And I enjoy those kind. I enjoy that. And I do, to steal from George Papard's character, I do like it when a plan comes together.
Well, yes. This, what was different, though, between this and the A-Team, though, is that they were also the bad guys. These were bank robbers.
Anti-heroes.
Yes, they were anti-heroes.
But you were definitely for them. Those were your protagonists.
Yes. Although, what's interesting, spoiler, can I do a spoiler?
Do it. Oh, come on. It's been out for
ages.
Years.
And actually, I don't care if people see this movie because it wasn't very good. So the spoiler for the original Ocean's 11 is that they don't get away with it.
No, they don't.
They don't get their money.
It's actually kind of a downer ending.
Yeah, they don't get their money. It's actually kind of funny the way they don't get it. They decide that after one of their colleagues
one of the 11,
dies
because that's
suddenly
the
in the middle of the night. Yes, Ocean and his 10 buddies, and it became Ocean's 11, dies right after the heist and is put into a casket. They decide one of the great ways to smuggle all of this money out of Las Vegas is to put it all in the casket. When they show up to the funeral, they find out that the wife has actually had her husband cremated, burned. Millions of dollars in cash. And then they just kind of walk away from the funeral parlor looking dejected and depressed.
Right.
And I kind of wondered, in 1960, when this movie was made, was it not okay to see people get away with a bank robbery? Even though you were rooting for them, even though they were the Rat Pack, they were cool. Was it just not okay to see criminals get away with it?
Well, I think you were at a time where that was changing in that the anti-hero, they were still having to get their comeuppance. So there is that part of it. But I also think there might be the part where Frank felt like it was edgy. If, everybody expected Frank and the Rat Pack to end up. So if they come to see the show, they figure that, of course they're going to end up with it. And then when they don't, that's like a weird twist.
Yeah.
Or also I have another theory.
Okay.
That maybe if they had figured out, they would have had to do something physical, like dig or something, and maybe the actors didn't feel like doing that. So they thought, you know what, why don't we not get the money? And that means that we can stop shooting and you'll just watch us walk down the street.
Yeah, because you know what, they're not any less cool at the end of the movie. They're still the
they're still the Rat Pack.
And they still successfully pulled off the heist.
Correct.
They did that. Did that. They just didn't get to keep the money.
Now, here's what I will say.
Went up in a ball of flames.
It's not a good movie. It really isn't. But I will tell you this, and I say this with a bit of guilt. I enjoy them. Now, please don't get me wrong. It's hard for me to watch some of the recorded shows that people recorded when they did Vegas and everything.
Yep.
It's hard for me to watch it because I now see the racism. I now see the misogyny. I now see everything I didn't when I was younger. I just thought they were funny. A little risque, but they were funny. And so I see it now. But they were cool, Eric.
They were cool. Here's the moment, though, that the movie kind of lost me is when they were all sitting around playing pool talking about what they're going to do with their money. And Dean Martin names the 2 amendments of the Constitution that he's going to revoke, which are the making slavery illegal and giving women the vote. so that he can turn women back into slaves. And everyone chuckles. And I was like, pardon me, what? Pardon me, what?
I know. I see some stuff just kind of, I ignored it or I didn't remember it, and I didn't remember that part.
Okay, well, I was watching this movie.
That's an awful thing.
It is. It's terrible. It's not really all that. I mean, senses of humor change, right? It's not really all that funny in 2017.
Correct.
And I was watching it with our dear friend Faye.
Well, okay. Well, then that was
who just,
I'm sure she just,
her head exploded.
Yes.
It was just like, this movie couldn't be over soon enough. Now, what was interesting about watching this with Faye is that she had seen the original in 1960 in the theater. She remembered it. Okay. She had never seen the remake. So after we were done watching Ocean's 11, I said, now we're going to watch the remake. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I can't spend any more time with this. I said, oh, no, trust. No. This is so much better.
Because you have to have a palate cleanser after the first one. And so the good one is to watch the second one, the one that, and of course, I love Steven Soderbergh.
Such a great filmmaker.
I love him.
So good.
I've loved him since
Sex, Lies, and
Videotape, which I saw in the theater.
Yep.
And it blew me the hell away.
Yes.
I absolutely love him. And he took the story and reworked it. Frankly, he made it work. This
is the best reason, I think, to do a remake. Is that the original had potential that it did not meet. And so you can actually make a good movie where there was not one before. That's the very best reason to remake a movie.
And I guess the thing is it had to have had potential, and it didn't reach it.
And it didn't reach it.
Because there are some movies that are remade, and you're like, the first one was a bad movie. Now you're making another bad movie.
Yep.
But Ocean's 11 had potential.
Yep.
Steven saw it. He reworked something, changed some things, and he got his own little rat pack, if you will.
Exactly.
Ensemble cast.
Who are all apparently very good friends.
And they're hang out,
Yeah.
And they're inside jokes.
Together.
They're inside jokes.
Oh, totally.
And so George Clooney.
Brad Pitt. Matt Damon. Julia Roberts.
Mm-hmm. Don Cheadle.
With a really bad accent. What the hell was up with that?
Julia?
Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle. Oh, I have no idea. It was a very
odd choice. I think it was, hey, I'll do your movie. Can I try a British accent? Sure.
Yeah, he didn't care. Steven didn't care because he got Don Cheadle. The problem was it was off-putting and it jerked me out of the story, which is not what you want. But having said that, that's probably the one thing I didn't like.
Yeah.
Everything else was lovely.
Scott
and again, it was
Conn
that whole thing. Oh, he's adorable.
Was great.
The little James Caan's son.
Yeah. Rapey Casey Affleck, isn't
it? Ben Affleck's rapey brother. Oscar winner.
Rapey Casey Affleck.
No, what's his name?
Casey Affleck.
Right,
Rapey Casey Affleck.
Yeah, okay.
Rapey Casey
Oscar
Affleck.
winner Casey Rapey Affleck. Or Rapey Casey.
Very good.
I don't know.
We're leaving it.
So, I thought you were saying that Julia Roberts had a weird accent.
No, she was fine.
It was a lot of fun. But it was also that same, here's a convoluted plan that depends on split-second timing.
But what was better about the second one is that you didn't get all the exposition, so you didn't know what the plan was. And there was a point in the movie where you thought, oh, crap, they're not going to get away with it. And in fact, they are getting away with it because they're fooling the audience just like they're fooling the bad guy, which is another thing that was different about this movie is it had a bad guy.
That's
Andy
true.
Garcia played the owner of actually these 3 casinos. They took it down to 3 casinos that shared a common vault. So they only had to break into one vault, but 3 casinos' money was going into this one vault. And you wanted this horrible man's money to be taken away from him.
He was definitely the bad guy. You didn't like him. And so these anti-heroes, if you will, the guy deserved it.
Totally deserved it.
And he was dating Julia Roberts now, who we all know was supposed to be with George Clooney.
Yes.
With, Ocean. She's supposed to be with Danny.
Yeah. And she is his ex-wife in the film. And that's similar to Angie Dickinson was Sinatra's estranged wife in the original. And what was interesting about this is that for George Clooney, it wasn't just about the money.
No.
It was also, even probably more than the money, it was about getting his ex-wife back.
But you know what? I think that one thing that if you're going to do a remake, there are decades in between. I think you do have to make your characters and their motivations more complicated. because I think it's the 21st century.
Sure.
I don't think it can be a simple black and white thing like I do think it was back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
So I think that had to be done. But I think these little twists and turns and what you're saying about fooling the audience while you're fooling the people on screen, that is Soderbergh's genius.
Yes. And that is something that modern movie audiences really kind of not demand, but we're delighted by.
Yes, and we respond positively to when it's done well. And in Ocean's 11, he did it really, really well.
Oh, superbly well.
Now, I feel like Ocean's 12 and 13 were basically just, let's all get together because we had such fun the first time.
Didn't see them.
They're fine.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I was so charmed by the first one. I suspected that 12 and 13 might be that way, and so I just was like, you know what? No.
You watch 12 and 13 because you enjoy the people. And you just want to hang out with them a little bit more. Yeah. That's all. It's not and then you have Catherine Zeta-Jones jumps in on one of them, and there's some other guest stars, and it's all fine and good, but you're not there. Ocean's 11 was where there was brilliance, in my opinion. 12 and 13 were just fun.
Okay. And which is what the first one was trying to be, really, is just let's watch a whole bunch of fun people having fun together, making a fun movie.
Right. Now, do you want
Except that it wasn't so much fun.
Do you want to do a spoiler for the remake?
Might as well. I mean, it's 2004.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. And it's probably not a huge surprise. They get away with it this time.
Yes.
Right? So they actually get the money, and George Clooney ends up back with Julia Roberts, which, that's the other thing about the original, is that Angie Dickinson just disappeared from this movie. She had this great, well, not a great scene. But it was an interesting scene. It was this long scene between Frank Sinatra and Angie Dickinson that started up, and then she just disappeared from that. Who cares? Well,
and I know that's the whole point. I think that I think maybe they were sitting around a table, and whoever was around the table was going to be in the movie.
Yep.
And Angie was at the table, and they said, okay, we'll give you a part. Oh, you can be Frank's wife. So they give her one scene, and that's all they needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's how I feel about that. When she was really, you talk about just being the girl.
Yeah.
With no necessarily, not even in a name.
Whereas Julia Roberts was really good in the...
But that was also a real part.
Yeah. She had real stuff to play.
She was the reason that George was doing what he was doing.
I tell you what, her face when he shows up at dinner and she's not expecting to see him, and he's been in jail, and he's a bad memory as far as she was concerned. Her face is, she doesn't move a muscle, and it really is like a masterclass in film acting.
She's gotten so good.
She's so good.
She's such a good actress. I really enjoy her.
Yeah. And so, little plug, we also did a whole show about Julia Roberts, so go back and listen to that one too.
So anyway, this was kind of an odd one in that the Ocean's 11, the new version, the remake, was better than Ocean's 11, the original.
Much.
And that doesn't often happen. It doesn't always happen.
No.
And we're going to talk about some others, though, not necessarily that were the opposite. I'm just saying that that's one that it doesn't happen often, that the new ones, as I said, we can name you about 10 where the original
is so much better.
Been the only one.
But we're snobs.
We are snobs. But it's much more fun. I find I enjoy myself.
I enjoy being a snob.
I do too.
I enjoy being a snob. Okay.
We'll be back.
You're listening to Popperation with Eric and Stacey. Take a deep breath. This may sting a little.
So we're talking about remakes.
Yep.
We talked about Ocean's 11, which the new one's better than the old one. Now, Ocean's 11 had Ocean's 12 and 13, but those are really sequels.
Yes.
But King Kong has actually had 2 other remakes. So there's actually 3 King Kongs you can see.
Well, and sequels to a lot of those as well. I mean, didn't King Kong meet Godzilla or Dracula or something at some point?
King Kong went to Japan and did all sorts of situations happen over there with Godzilla, Mothra. Don't get me started. He met a lot of people. He got around.
So we're just going to talk about like the original in each one of these time periods. Original King Kong.
His origin story.
Yes.
Which isn't really fair because he was fully grown by the time we met him on any of them. But there were 3 of them. There was 1933, 1976, and 2005. Now, the one that's the most vilified is the 1976 one. But we'll go back first to the 1933, which put Fay Wray, made her a star.
Yes. That and the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I don't know what you mean when you say that.
Okay. Well, the reason I knew who Fay Wray was is because Tim Curry sings "Whatever Happened to Fay Wray."
Okay.
Remember?
See, yes, I remember that now, but see, I knew who she was before, so that didn't jump out at me. Because I was an old movie buff, and that's what I'd seen. It's a lovely movie. And for its time, 1933, technically advanced.
Yes.
Claymation Central. Okay, don't get me wrong.
A modern moviegoer has to forgive much of the stop motion animation where the monkey is crawling up on the top of the Empire State Building. But for people who were not used to seeing a lot of special effects, I'm sure in 1933 on the big screen, it was terrifying to see this thing happen.
Most definitely, because again, you have these visuals where this young woman is in this big hand of this ape, and you're sitting there thinking, it's kind of like when Jurassic Park first came out. I remember sitting there in the theater going, how did they get these dinosaurs trained? That was an actual thought that went through my mind. Because it was so realistic. I look at it now and you can see, the flaws. But at the time, and that's in 1933, they'd never seen anything like this before.
No, ever.
And the story, compelling. And it was also a commentary, which I think King Kong is always a commentary on when humans decide that they know best for everything that they come across. Yeah. And now, although I will say, the reason they go to this island, they find this big ape Kong, take him to New York. That's just greed. They're getting King Kong just to make money. Yeah. Now,
we can bring this thing back, show him to the world, sell tickets.
Correct. Yep. And King Kong, he's not, he's chained there on the stage, and he's fine until the audience starts doing what audiences do. They look, they laugh, they make these weird noises that he's never heard before, and he goes crazy. Yeah. So in the end, it's not his fault that he goes on this rampage. Yeah. And he's not going on, it's not like in Jaws where the shark basically went after people. Yeah. King Kong was just trying to get the hell out of there and get his girl. Yeah.
That's the one thing that I even in 1933, it's like, what was the relationship between the monkey and the girl was always my question. Was it more like, because we have relationships with animals all the time.
I don't think it was...
I have a dog. My dog loves me. Did Kong love Fay Wray the way that a pet might love a person? Is that
Here's my problem with certainly the first two Kongs. Okay. In the filmmaking. And I wasn't going to bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up because you're asking this particular question. What happens is that the girls in both, in Fay Wray's, so they go and they're exploring this island. There are natives there who are all dark-skinned. Okay. They've been sacrificing, and this is in 1976 one too, they've been sacrificing their girls every so often. They grabbed her because if they sacrifice her, this blonde white girl, they won't have to sacrifice any of theirs for that particular month or however. I don't know, how often he asks for sacrifices.
And does he ask, or is it just a superstition that
ask is probably too strong a word. But here's the deal. So I just remember the scene where Kong comes up to the sacrifice altar and he sees this woman. Yes. She looks different from any other sacrifice. This is why I have a problem with it, and that I feel like it was basically putting up the blonde white woman as the perfect female specimen. Yeah. And that which is what you most want to attain. And even Kong knows this.
Well, but it's okay because we've had a black president, so that's all done with. That's all in the past.
Yeah, we don't have racism anymore. But at the time, we did. But that's my thing is I really feel because, especially, I remember this 1976 one vividly, he chomps down on all the natives, but he holds on to Jessica Lange. So whatever the reason is, I don't know. Now the 1976 one, there were some weird sexually things because he played with her clothes a little bit, kind of felt her up. I remember that. Okay. But
It's disturbing.
So there was an allusion to that kind of idea.
So
but
King Kong loved Fay Wray, but 1976 Kong loved Jessica Lange. That's what you're saying.
But Jessica didn't. The feeling was not reciprocated.
Oh.
It wasn't like Beauty and the Beast.
Consent is sexy, King Kong. Yeah.
But I guess, so you asked the question, and that's the answer, is I think that it's because that they looked different.
Okay.
And so the idea is that...
Gentlemen prefer blondes, is what you're
correct.
saying. Okay,
Correct.
got it.
And I probably could have put it in that one sentence instead. I went through that wonderfully awkward, convoluted explanation. You're welcome.
Yeah, okay. Well, white supremacy is a thing.
So that's what I think on that one. Now, so in 1976, they remade it.
Yep.
Jeff Bridges, Jessica Lange was the Fay Wray person. And the idea was...
Was she good? Clearly, I've never seen this movie, but she's wonderful. I saw Jessica Lange recently in the HBO Grey Gardens.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
She's really good.
She and Drew Barrymore both, Little Rabbit Hole, were phenomenal.
She was also good in the one where she was Joan Crawford.
Oh, Betty and Joan.
Yes.
Yes.
Well.
So Jessica Lange, brilliant actress. Did we see a glimmer of this in 1976, or was it just not that kind of part?
I'll be honest with you, no.
Okay.
No, I did
All right.
not.
But she's pretty.
She was a pretty blonde.
She's gorgeous.
And
did Meryl Streep audition for that role? I heard somewhere that she did.
I don't know, but I will tell you, Meryl Streep was not she was not unattractive at that time, but she was a different kind of pretty.
Yeah.
Jessica Lange was the very typical pretty blonde.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. It was easy to believe that she was ditzy. I don't know that it would ever be easy to believe that Meryl Streep could be ditzy.
Oh, was she supposed to be ditzy?
Oh, God, yes.
Okay.
Her name is Dwan.
Her name is what?
Dwan.
Dwan?
And Jeff's like, you mean Dawn? And she goes, no, Dwan. And it's like, she gives some weird explanation as to why she changed the letters around. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
She would do it.
All right.
So, anyway,
Dwan.
76 came out.
Okay.
Now, if you recall, the big climactic moment in the first one is King Kong climbs the Empire State Building.
Yep.
Well, in 76, the Twin Towers had just been finished.
Oh, of course.
Had just been opened. And so that was a big deal that King Kong was going to climb up. And they shut streets down. I mean, it was a huge deal in New York City when they filmed it because, the Twin Towers were going to be in the spotlight, which the World Trade Center really wanted, all of that. Good promo and all that. And so that's what he did. He climbed up the Twin Towers. And that was his climactic.
Question for you, just from a New York geography standpoint. Was he still being shown to the world in a Broadway theater? And we're supposed to believe that he went all the way down to the financial district just to climb up the Twin Towers?
Here's what I'm going to say.
I mean, that's stupid, but
here's what I'm going to say to you, Mr. MapQuest. You don't go to see a movie called King Kong and act like it's a documentary.
No, but if you're a New Yorker, or even if you've been to New York a couple times, it's okay. They were at a Broadway theater 2 seconds ago, really. So, Little Rabbit Hole, but this is my point, right? I remember second season, first episode, House of Cards, where Kate O'Mara, the troublesome journalist, turns to Frank Underwood, the evil congressperson, wants to be vice president, wants to be president. We need to talk. And one of them says, I'll meet you in Rock Creek Park.
Yeah.
Okay. If you know anything about D.C., Rock Creek Park stretches for
huge.
Literally miles.
Yeah.
You don't say to somebody, I'll meet you in Rock Creek Park, and then just find them at a park bench.
7 hours later.
Right? That is the stupidest thing. So I'm just saying, if you're familiar, and a few people actually live in New York City. So that's not that's a demographic, right?
Correct. And
I'm just wondering.
Here's what I'm going to say. This is what I say to my children all the time when we're watching some stupid movie. It's not a documentary. That is all I'm going to say to you.
All right, fine.
Here's another rabbit hole.
He's a big monkey. He can go where he wants, right? Okay.
Here's another rabbit hole in regard to that.
Yes.
People will make movies in Nashville. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. And people make country music star origin stories or whatever. And they put crap together. They put the Bluebird Cafe, which is an historic, legendary place where people can are found. Stars are made.
Yep.
You know, they'll be found there. And they put it near Music Row or near downtown Nashville. It's not anywhere near Music Row. But I saw some movie with River Phoenix, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was fairly awful, even though I loved River Phoenix, R.I.P. And these producers had put like everything that was legendary in Nashville on one block. So it's like that's what movies do.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, and this is a gorilla. By the way, are you going to ask me if this 80,000 foot gorilla was walking in New York and how did they block the streets? It's the same question, Eric. It's fiction.
Okay. So they made a third King Kong.
They did.
And I'm noticing that our notes here, this is hysterical to me. 1933, Fay Wray. 1976, Jessica Lange. 2005, Jack Black.
King Kong's taste
One
changed.
of these things is not like the other.
Not fair. No, Jack Black was, but he was. I think he may have even been over. No, he went over the title, but he was the big.
He was the big star.
There,
Naomi Watts.
Naomi
was the
Watts,
blonde
and she
in that
was
one.
lovely. She was very good. And what they did is they went back. In 1976 took place in modern times. It took place in 1976.
Well, Twin Towers. There you go.
Correct. The newest one with Naomi Watts and Jack Black took place back in 1933.
Interesting. Why?
Oh, I think I think it's like the women. I think it needed to be. I think you have a better story. I think, again, 1976, they were looking for oil. That's why they went to Skull Island, is they were looking for oil. And the great Rene Auberjonois.
Of Benson fame.
Yes. He was, and the voice of the chef in Little Mermaid, just FYI.
Really?
He did not, les poissons. That's all I know. Anyway, he was in it, and he was the scientist or whatever who was trying to find the oil, and he was wonderful because he had snide comments. Also, Charles Grodin was in the 1976 as well as the bad guy. He was the Jack Black in it. But I think it was smart to go back to the 30s to do this because, well, the expectation's a little different.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have all this new technology and say, well, you know, you could have gotten a satellite image and found the thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's in 2017, there's no reason for me to go all the way to Skull Island.
True.
Physically. But in 1933 there was. And so, and they mixed it up. They had some more diversity.
And Naomi probably got to rock an amazing hairstyle, I bet, if she's going back to 1933.
It was a lovely, it was a pretty short little bob. It was very cute. She looked great. She looked great, and she was good. Yep. She was very good.
Okay.
But they had Samuel L. Jackson. They were able to, they diversified the cast a little bit, even in that time period. So
because you know what? Black people existed in 1933.
And not just on the island. They weren't just there to be eaten.
But you wouldn't know that black people existed in 1933 by watching a movie from 1933.
No.
But you can. You can do that when you,
But then the problem, here's the thing about the 1933, going back to things that are make me a little uncomfortable. So yes, the only black people in that were the natives who got eaten.
Yep.
But here's a problem with that. Not all of the natives were really black people. There were a lot of white people with shoe polish on.
It's really bad.
It is really bad.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying, that there's some things about it that really make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's another one of them. So, was it better? Should they have been made? All right. I think yes. And the reason I think yes, I think it's a story that people should see because I think it's a fun adventure film that has everything. It has
and a point. It actually has a point.
Love, yes.
Yeah.
But it hits all of it. It has the romance, it has the action and adventure, it has violence if you need some of that. It's got animal rights.
Okay.
I don't know.
PETA approved? Because no giant gorillas were harmed in the making of any of these movies.
They really weren't. And they never skinned them. Not once. So, but again, the story, spoiler, he dies at the end.
Yep.
But I just think it's a nice story. I think it's a fun story. And I think that the third rendition of going back and doing it in that time period was a wise move. And I think it was a good movie. I think it was I think Peter Jackson did a really great job.
Yeah. And I will also say, the kind of popcorn adventure story that King Kong is,
yes,
you're not going to get a lot of people that want to see a movie from 1933 who want to go see a popcorn adventure story. So you do need to bring it up to date a little bit and show them something new with today's stars and today's technology.
And you're talking about the technology. I was going to say, if you make it modern, you have to use that technology for your plot. But if you take it back to 33, you don't have to use it for the plot, but you can use it in your CGI and your effects, which were lovely. And so when they're crossing the bridge or whatever, it's across the big cavernous whatever, and if you fall, you die 8,000 times. It looks like you really could. The problem in 1933, they probably did have people die because they're doing some real stunts in real crazy locations. Yeah. And again, there's not the safety precautions they have now.
I died for Screen Actors Guild union scale. It's depressing.
It's depressing.
All right.
So the King Kong, my bottom line on that is I think that 76 gave it a good shot. It wasn't awful. It got panned, okay? It really, truly did. And the fact that Jessica Lange is still active is a tribute to the skill she acquired. Jeff Bridges, he was always going to be. He was always, that was never in question. It was, but people did question his choice in being in it. But I enjoyed that. But the last one that's been made, I think so. I think, again, this is one where this is a story that it's great that younger people can see it.
When we come back, a controversial
It is controversial.
Remake. So we're going to end with a little controversy, as we are wont to do, in just a moment.
Open wide, it's your prescribed dose of Poperation with Eric and Stacey.
Who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters?
Yes, you are, and you're going to do it twice.
And the second time, it's going to be girls who answer the phone.
The first time, there's no girls allowed, except for Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver. There is no Dana, only Zool.
So this is a remake that, as you said, was controversial. Here's my thing. They changed some things in it.
Sure.
Do you still consider it a remake?
I do.
Or a reimagining, as you like to say.
Mox Nix, six one, half dozen of the other. I originally was told when the new Ghostbusters was coming out, there was a rumor that was going around that Kristen Wiig was actually going to be Bill Murray's character's daughter, and that she was going to bring the Ghostbusters back.
Oh.
And that it was really going to be more of a sequel.
Okay,
that took place years later, and Dr. Venkman has a grown daughter, and she still believes in her father's work, and everyone thinks she's nuts, and she brings it back. Whether or not they scrapped that idea or that was never the original intention, I don't know. But the new one takes place in a world where there were not Ghostbusters, and now there are Ghostbusters, and they just all happen to be women. And so, yeah, I would call that a remake. I mean, because a lot of remakes are reimaginings. I mean, Ocean's 11 might have been a reimagining. They
changed some things. They
changed a lot of things.
They did. You're
and
right.
changed the ending.
Right.
So, I mean, I think a lot of times when you're doing a remake, you're going to change stuff unless you're doing Psycho, which sucked.
Which was stupid not to change stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So...
Well, no, you know what? Psycho should never have been done. Don't change it. I don't want somebody out there and go, oh, hey, what if I do Psycho but I change it? No, don't do it. I just want to put that out there. I didn't want to be the reason that another Psycho movie is made.
Well, okay.
People listen to us, Eric.
We're highly influential.
We're trendsetters.
We're a media conglomerate.
Oh my gosh, I can't even spell that word. So, I loved the first one.
Great movie. So fun.
Absolutely hysterical.
So incredibly fun.
And again, you know what? It did also feel like a bunch of guys doing a movie together.
Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Yes.
A bunch of friends
who were having a really great time.
But I will say the second one fell that way too. But the first one, it was Harold Ramis. I think was one of the creators of it, and he did. He always put a part in there for Bill Murray. And if you're thinking, you put a part in there for Dan Aykroyd. Certainly in the 70s and 80s, you did.
Why not?
And I thought it played to their strengths.
Yep.
and it was, you go to see a Bill Murray movie. That's what you went for, and that's what you got. And it was,
you said the only girl that was Sigourney Weaver, but Annie Potts was hilarious.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about her.
Original movie. She was so funny.
She was wonderful, and Annie Potts does that. She'll take a small role and make it so memorable that sometimes you forget who else was in it.
Yeah.
For example, Pretty in Pink.
Yes.
As the record store owner and boss of Molly Ringwald's character.
Yep. Strong lips. Remember that?
I do remember that.
Yes.
I also remember the look on her face. We're talking about faces on actresses, looks on faces of actresses who are in movies. Oh my God, that was convoluted. Remember when Ducky did the lip sync?
Yes.
And
all Annie Potts does is just watch, her head moves as she's watching him around and doesn't move a muscle. Hysterical. She was wonderful.
She's absolutely wonderful. Annie Potts, I can watch her do just anything. Yeah. She's just remarkable. So I'm sorry, I apologize for forgetting her because she was wonderful in that. And honestly, of the two roles, I would have preferred hers. Hers was much more entertaining. Sigourney was just the girl.
She was the girl. Annie was part of the team. Annie was part of the team.
Yes.
And
even
had
though
funny
she lines.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, she had funny lines.
Oh, and I bet she made half of them up just because she's a genius.
Yes.
So so Ghostbusters, great movie. Was it the first? I people will correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like saying Ghostbusters was one of the first movies to really it was half and half comedy and action. It was an action movie and it was a comedy. It was 100% comedy and 100% action. And the two just lived side by side in a way that I don't know that another movie had ever done before.
I don't know.
Because it was an action movie starring comedians.
Okay, that's true. Then when you put it that way, then yes, because it would have set it up.
Funny. It was always funny.
It would have set it up for, say, Die Hard.
Yeah.
Because Bruce Willis came from comedy.
Yes, he was best known for moonlighting at the time.
Right. And so now I get that he's action star Bruce Willis. But at the time, he was funny man. Mm-hmm. And that's a very funny show.
Moonlighting was
it was a funny
great.
Show, but I was thinking of Die Hard. It's a very funny movie.
It is. But it's not the kind of, no one dreams up the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man at the end of Die Hard. I mean, Ghostbusters was more of a comedy the entire time.
But who created it? Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
And he's comedy. I mean, so I think that it depends on who it's coming from. But you might be right on
anyway,
that.
If it happened before,
it was a very good
maybe.
Marriage.
But it was, it really kind of brought these two genres together. And in that way, it was kind of groundbreaking in what it was. Great theme song as well. Ray Parker Jr.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you so much.
Even though there was controversy.
Yes.
You remember the controversy at all? No. Huey Lewis.
What about Huey Lewis? Sued?
Yes. Because he said that the Ghostbusters stole from his...
The Power of Love.
Yes.
I can hear it. Yep. Okay. I can see that. Well, if
So I'm just saying there was a little controversy there. But not nearly as much controversy as the new Ghostbusters.
The new Ghostbusters, which, okay.
And I'm sorry, this was a stupid controversy in my opinion, but I get that there are people who are, quote, purists. And for me, I think that is really narrow-minded.
I would agree. I saw the remake of Ghostbusters in the theater. Mm-hmm. And I saw it, and the theater was about 3/4 full on opening weekend, which I already kind of went, oh, this could be bad. I think people put so much on this movie about, it became a referendum on, are women funny? And I'm like, are we still asking that question? Are women funny? What a dumb question. Women have been hilarious since the beginning of time.
Correct.
And especially since the beginning of movies. I mean, you can go back to the 30s and find women who are hysterical.
Well, even in the movie that we're talking about, The Women, that only plays in the 30s, it's some of the funniest lines.
Oh, and some of the funniest performances. I mean, you see L'amour, l'amour, l'amour on a page. It takes that woman, Mary Boland, to create this incredible character. So yes, women are funny, full stop, done. We don't need a movie that comes out in 2016 to prove to us that women are funny. But it became this whole referendum on, once people got all their misogynist knickers in a knot about how you can't make a remake of Ghostbusters and have them all have vaginas because the world's going to end.
Well, I think part of it is that feeling threatened. There is this idea that that, like Highlander, there can be only one. And that's not
Stupid.
really true. I think that the idea that if you remake this movie, then that takes away from the first is unfair. But I feel like that's what people were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to a remake, there is going to be this thing of which one did you like better? You know, and this is an interesting remake in that they kind of expected you to see the first one.
Yeah, but nobody was yelling about this for King Kong. Nobody was yelling about this for Ocean's 11.
No.
So my feeling is there is some kind of weird threat here to people for them to, for me it was, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But again, I have a vagina.
Well, I also think that with King Kong and with Ocean's 11, people kind of expected that no one had seen the original. This was a movie for all the ones who hadn't seen it.
Okay.
People expected you to have seen the original because all the cameos. Ernie Hudson had a cameo. Bill Murray had a cameo. Sigourney Weaver had a cameo. I mean, they all came back. So there was this lovely inside joke for anyone who had seen the original to see all of the stars, not only, in it, but supporting it in a way. I mean, all of them were basically endorsing this idea that Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy and Kate McKinnon and Leslie Jones, four hysterically funny women, could just do a movie about Ghostbusters and have them all be girls. Right.
But also, it's only 30 years. That's not, so you have people who are going to remember.
Sure.
You're right. There's not as many people who are going to remember Ocean's 11 there's a bigger gap.
Yeah. And Ocean's 11 was not a great movie. That's the other part of that.
There's that part. So I get the argument sort of for the purists.
Yep.
But at the same time, I think art can't be stopped by that.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, Ghostbusters 2016, I was thoroughly entertained. I had a great time at the movies.
Had a smile on my face the whole time.
Me too.
I like the fact that in the 2016 version, the person who got objectified was a man.
Oh, Chris Hemsworth.
Yes.
Oh, I will objectify him all the fuck day long.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying to you. But it was so fun as opposed to having a woman.
Yeah.
That it was. Now, because Sigourney, if you go back, she was. They put her in sexy stuff at the end there.
Yeah.
But, that's usually what the girl
But here's
is.
the interesting thing. Chris Hemsworth was not the new Sigourney. Chris Hemsworth was the new Annie Potts because he was the new assistant. Right. There was no romantic interest in the remake. And I actually kind of liked the fact that they gave these four women a happy ending that had everything to do with their jobs.
Yep. I thought it was great.
And nothing to do with landing. Now, we were talking before we turned on the microphones this time about Working Girl. We were reminiscing about that old Melanie Griffith, Harrison Ford movie where, she, attained career success at the end of that one as well, but she also got the guy. She also settled down with Harrison Ford. It's rare that you ever see a movie with female protagonists or even a single protagonist, whereas her happy ending has everything to do with her job and nothing to do with her love life. That's kind of refreshing.
Oh, it was great because it really was, as you said, it was about what they're doing. It was not about what they needed in a romantic side at all.
And there was no love interest at all. They didn't even lose the guy. There was no guy.
No, it wasn't a question. And it was a lot of, I enjoyed it. And I took my daughters. That was my thing because this is a female empowerment kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was just as much that as Wonder Woman was.
Yeah, and to me, it's that Wonder Woman is a great film because DC needed a decent superhero movie for once, and we finally got one, and it happened to be the one about the girl.
Correct.
This was a great, funny movie about Ghostbusters that really happened to star four women.
And maybe you just need to separate it from the first one.
Yeah.
Just let them
live side by side.
And maybe, I don't know, just act like they don't even have any kind of connection. Exactly, just side by side. Can't we both be winners?
And that's why I love those cameos. I mean, to me, they were short, they were little itty bitty, but they were great because it was an endorsement of that original cast to say, look, we're okay with this. Mm-hmm. In fact, we love it so much we're in the movie.
Yes.
We're in there. Like, we're good. Because it's just one of those things where not every movie that focuses on women should have to be about women's empowerment. Sometimes it can just be a good movie, but we're not at that point yet as a society, because if it focuses just on women, it's a feminist statement of some sort. And, you know, I have nothing against feminist statements. I love feminist statements. I make them all the time. And this was just a funny movie. It was just a really good show. There
are a lot of movies out there, action movies, whatever, that are guy films where there isn't a romantic interest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to have, you know, women can do that too. And I think that that's kind of been an idea that you always got to have a man in there, because that's always part of them.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you make it a small part, you know, trying to be, quote, feminist, the thing is you don't need to have it in there at all.
If it's not important to the story you're telling.
You can have a movie with all these women doing something that has literally nothing to do with them.
And not only the fact was their happy ending about their career, they were also scientists.
Oh my gosh.
Which is just cool.
STEM.
Which is just cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, because they were kick-ass scientists who destroyed ghosts with lasers.
Yes.
So that's cool. So they were cool, but they were also like, it wasn't about, you know, women who achieved success acting or modeling.
No, and they were funny.
Yeah.
And they were funny.
And they were so funny.
So I really enjoyed it. And I guess my difference on this is I don't think they should be compared. Some Ocean's 11 should be compared, and don't see the first one.
Yeah.
The King Kongs, I think that's kind of a...
It's fun to compare them, and they're all fine.
Yeah.
You know, but they were made for different reasons. Yeah.
This one, I just don't compare them. They're just two different movies.
Well, what we're saying is see both. Just see both and enjoy them both.
But don't feel like you have to
enjoyable.
say one of them is a winner.
Yeah.
And one of them is a loser.
Not everything has to be in competition.
I just don't think it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be. So I think that a lot of times, if we're going to do a final diagnosis.
Okay, final diagnosis, Stacey, go.
I think that in deciding whether you're going to remake a movie, the big question should be why. What is your point? Do you want to bring back a story that a lot of people may not have seen because it was an old movie and they don't do old movies?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to bring something new to an old story that had potential, but it didn't quite reach it? Or it had potential, but it's a different potential now because it's a different time.
Mm-hmm.
If it is just to try to make money for no other reason than that made money back in the day, I'm going to do another one because it'll make money, I don't think that's a good reason.
No, and I don't have the imagination to come up with anything new.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that a good remake succeeds when the reasons are right.
Yeah. And I'll go back to what I said about Ocean's 11. I think the best reason is we didn't have a good movie, so let's make a good movie. Those are my favorite, right? I think in the case of it, again, I applaud the intentions with the women, because I think she saw a lot of misogyny and said, I wonder if I can tell this story without it.
The answer is no.
The answer was no. You couldn't tell that story without it, because it's an inherently misogynist story. The idea that she's incomplete without her man is just so problematic to begin with.
And the women against women. That is so early 20th century.
But so at the end of the remake where they're all just friends, it just didn't,
It's what you did. In the 30s.
And it was just... Ghostbusters is one of those things where, you know, that's also a good reason to make it. It's just like, let's just have fun with it. And again, let these two things exist.
But let other kinds of people portray those characters, you know, or portray characters like that, or have that story. Let others.
And that's the Death at a Funeral story again, too, right? Is that, you know, this is a great story. It's funny. Why not let Kevin Hart and Chris Rock have a good time?
And they changed it to be more African American, and which is good because it was very British before and all that. I mean,
reached a new audience.
Yes.
A lot of Black American moviegoers are not going to see this British film.
No, they didn't. It wasn't put out here big. So yeah.
But they'll see this one and you know, all these big stars, and they all could have a good time.
I think I think those are good reasons.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I can give you a little bit of a short list of some of the remakes that are coming out next year.
Okay, go.
Mulan, Disney is doing its live action thing, cartoon to live action thing, twice.
Which I have mixed feelings about.
Mulan and Peter Pan next year.
Oh, so they're doing like Second Star to the Right. All of the it's a live action remake of the Disney cartoon.
Nobody's asked me to help them write this, Eric. You act like I know.
Well,
here's another one. This one's weird.
Okay.
Tomb Raider.
Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
They're doing it again, which I mean,
but without Angelina.
Oh no, it's Vikander. What's her face? Vikander.
Alicia Vikander.
That's her.
She's very good in the Danish role. Scarface.
This is the third one because, of course, there was the first one with Paul Mooney back in the 30s,
way
40s.
Back.
And then there was, of
Al
course,
Pacino, Michelle Pfeiffer.
And so now I don't even know who's this one. I don't know who this is. But The Crow, which I thought was really weird that they're doing The Crow again.
Yeah, well, it's creepy because it's kind of isn't that franchise kind of cursed?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I sure wouldn't take that part. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Again.
Yeah.
Really? So they're remaking the original?
Yes, it's not a sequel. This is this one. Overboard. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, which I thought was delightful. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
I'll suspend judgment on that one, though.
Here's one that I know you have a really strong opinion on. A Star is Born.
I enjoy the fact that this movie is made over and over and over and over again. I do. I guess.
I guess, in a way, I get it. It fits because things, that industry changes. The entertainment
and
industry
music changes. Yeah,
right.
because it's really about, an actor and his wife who's a musician, and and gender politics change because what's really what this movie really is, and every iteration that it has been so far, is that her career begins to eclipse his, and that's a problem. Like, he discovers her and he's so proud of her and they're in love, so long as he's always a little bit more successful than she is. And there's a lot of heartbreak there. And of course, she's happy that her career is succeeding. Yeah. I'm also excited. I saw American Horror Story Hotel. Mm-hmm. Lady Gaga did not have to really get into her Stanislavski method to play that role.
Mm-hmm. Did she get the Emmy, or she was nominated?
Was she? I don't know.
Oh.
It was good. It was. But it's American Horror Story. It's a genre thing.
Right.
I'm interested to see her play something kind of dramatic. So it's her and Bradley Cooper, who is just so. He's very pretty. He's very pretty, and he's very. He's very appealing. Here's
my thing with it. It's not a story that I love. Any of them. I've seen most of them, and I just kind of meh. Because, and again, it is, to me, it feels very soap opera. And I just, got it. So I don't know. It may, if they bring something new and do a Soderbergh to it, I'm all for it.
Well, also, I think A Star is Born has a very interesting, because the last 3 of the 4 that have been done star some of the biggest divas in the gay pantheon. And so gay audiences, come on, Judy Garland, Barbara Streisand, and now Lady Gaga.
That's true. You're right.
This is something that, how could Lady Gaga say no to that? To do something that both Judy and Barbara had done before. Duh. It just...
Yeah, but you do want to do it well, so I hope that it is good.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be, I can't say that. I'm not sure it'll be anything, but it could be great. I think it could be great.
Bradley Cooper's no Chris Christopherson.
Well, who is, really? Who is, Stacey?
That's Poppery.
On that note, I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey.
Neither of us are anything close to Chris Christopherson, but nonetheless, we'll see you next time.
Who can be Chris Christopherson?
Oh, God.
You've been listening to Popperation with Eric and Stacey. Check out our website at poperationroom.com for links to our blog and other extras. Don't forget to subscribe to Popperation via iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, and other podcast locations. You can also follow at Popperation Room on Facebook and Twitter. Music provided by purpleplanet.com.